welcome back to A9 News Kids. This week on the main headlines, we have the son of El Chapo, the Mexican drug lord and kingpin, being arrested and the riots over there, the possible ceasefire that Russia will have for the next few days for Orthodox Christmas, the US House of Representatives Speaker who has not been voted for yet, and Chinese COVID-19 and cases and deaths. For the Hungry for History segment, you're going to be learning all about the Russian Revolution, and in the Persona segment, you're going to be learning about Joseph Stalin. I hope you learned something new. This week, we are interviewing Mrs. Livina Rama, who's a psychologist and someone really interesting. I really hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and comment below because we are only 300 subscribers until 1,000. The son of El Chapo, a Mexican drug lord and kingpin, was arrested in the city of Sinaloa, and now there's a lot of unrest there. There's also riots by the Mexican drug lord's supporters and the gang members. Vehicles are being set on fire, planes are being fired at, and even 2 planes have already been damaged with gunshots. More than 100 flights in Sinaloa have been cancelled just this week. In 2019, he was also arrested, but he was released because the police feared that his supporters would do something like this. So it seems like he might be released soon. Already 18 people have been injured and taken to hospital, and 3 policemen have been killed. President Vladimir Putin of Russia called for a Russian ceasefire so that the soldiers could get a 36-hour break to go visit their families and celebrate the Russian Orthodox Christmas. He also asked for Ukraine to join in the same celebration and the same ceasefire, but Mr. Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, declined the invitation and said that it was just a trick so that Russia could advance without any Ukrainian soldiers being there. It seems like Russia is going to have the ceasefire, and President Vladimir Putin said that it was after the request of the head of the Russian Orthodox Church. The Republican leader of the House of Representatives, Kevin McCarthy, failed to become the Speaker after the 11th time the process of voting was held on the 3rd day. He is not being elected as a Speaker because there are 20 Republicans who are refusing to make sure that he gets the votes. The rest of the Republicans are on his side. There are not many ways that it'll come to a solution, because the only way that he can get out of this is if he stops and decides to exit the race, or if everyone else votes unanimously and he gets the votes, the 218 votes that he needs. The Republican House got into the office in November, and they still haven't been able to pass any laws and get in any new people yet. The WHO has said that China has been recording the wrong information concerning their COVID-19 cases and deaths. Since December, they have only marked 22 COVID deaths, although it seems like there have been more. Some countries have done some investigations about how many cases and deaths they really have, and UK has come to a conclusion saying that they have had 2 million cases every day and 14,700 deaths per day from COVID, which is a lot. The WHO said that China still really needs to put the real-time deaths and cases so that the other countries will know when the Chinese travelers are coming to their countries. It also seems like China hopes that this is the last battle against COVID 19. They think that in a few weeks, everything will be back to normal and there will be almost no COVID 19 in the country at all. Hi everybody, this week for the Hungry for History segment, I'm going to be telling you about the Bolshevik Revolution in URSS, which is now Russia. I really hope you enjoy. The Bolshevik Revolution, or the Russian Revolution, took place in 1917 when Russia's peasants and working class people revolted against the government of Tsar Nicholas II. They were led by Vladimir Lenin and a group of revolutionaries called the Bolsheviks. The new communist government created the country of the Soviet Union. Before the revolution, Russia was ruled by a powerful monarch called Tsar. The Tsar had total power of Russia and he commanded the army and owned much of the land. He also controlled the church. And during the period before the Russian Revolution, life for the working class and the peasant was really tough. In 1914, World War I began and Russia was at war with Germany. A huge Russian army was formed and the working class were forced to work and joined the army. The Russian people blamed the Tsar for entering the war and getting so many of their young men killed. The people of Russia first revolted in early 1917, and the revolution began when many workers decided to strike. They also began to riot, and in October 1917, Vladimir Lenin took full control of the government in the Bolshevik Revolution. Russia was now the first communist country in the world, and the new government took control of all industries and moved the Russian economy from rural to industrial. It also seized farmland from landholders and distributed it among the peasants. The main leaders of the Bolsheviks were Vladimir Lenin, Joseph Stalin, and Leon Trotsky. After Lenin died in 1924, Stalin consolidated power and exiled Leon Trotsky. Hi everybody, this week for the Persona segment, I'm going to be telling you about Joseph Stalin, the dictator of URSS. I hope you learned something new. Joseph Stalin became the leader of the Soviet Union after the founder of the Soviet Union, Vladimir Lenin, died in 1924. Stalin ruled up until his death in 1953, and he was known as a brutal leader who was responsible for the deaths of over 20 million people. Stalin's parents were very poor and he had a very rough childhood. Stalin joined up with the Bolshevik revolutionaries. This was an underground group of people that followed the communist writings of Karl Marx and were led by Vladimir Lenin. Stalin became a leader within the Bolsheviks, and he led riots and strikes and even raised money by robbing banks and other crimes. Soon, Stalin became one of Lenin's top leaders, and in 1917, the Russian Revolution took place. This was when the government led by Tsars was overthrown by the Bolsheviks, and the Bolsheviks came into power. Stalin was a major leader in the government, and in 1924, Vladimir Lenin died. Stalin had been growing and he had a lot more power and control, so he took over the role as the leader of the Soviet Union, and he decided that the country should move away from agriculture and become industrialized. Stalin was one of the most brutal leaders in world history, and he had anyone that didn't agree with him killed. He was also caused famines in the areas of a country, and people wanted dead would starve. Throughout his rule, he would order purges where millions of people thought they were against him would be killed or put into slave labor camps. Hi everybody, this week we are interviewing Mrs. Lovina Rama, who's a child psychologist in Mauritius. I really hope you learned something new and enjoy her advice.
So I'm Levna Rama, and I'm a clinical psychologist, but I work in the educational sector. Um, I've been working since around 3 years. Yeah, it's been 3 years since I've started working as as a psychologist. Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. And can you tell me more about what you do as a clinical psychologist?
So I'm a clinical psychologist working in the educational sector.
Mhm.
So it will be different from a psychologist who works in clinical settings, in
Okay.
hospitals or in private settings.
Mhm.
So what I do in the educational sector, usually I work mostly with kids.
Mhm.
So I receive kids who have been referred to by their teachers or by their headmasters or their parents who want me to see them. So
Mhm.
we refer the case, and usually, depending on the complaints or difficulties that they are having, then we do an assessment. It can be an assessment on the academic level, on the social level, on the emotional level, different types of assessment depending on the case. And then once the assessment is done, we see what are the recommendations we're going to give the parents, the teachers, or how we're going to help the kids, depending on the difficulties they're having and on the level of difficulties that they're experiencing.
Wow, that's great. And could you tell us what you did before this, or how you got into this sector?
Oh, how did I become a psychologist?
Yeah.
Yes.
Um, it's actually, I knew that I wanted to study psychology since I was around 15, 16. I was
Okay.
very interested by the subject
Wow.
without a definite plan of becoming a psychologist.
Okay.
So I did my bachelor in psychology, and then after that, I came back to Mauritius to check out their market. What is
Mhm.
there? What are the needs? What are the demands? And then I landed a job in marketing, which was different from psychology, but
Yeah.
uh, still you can employ much other knowledge that you have in psychology and marketing, like to devise strategies,
Yeah.
consumer behavior, and stuff, which was interesting. But over a period of time, I felt that it's not my thing. It's not what I want to do in the long term. So I
Mhm.
went back for my master's and I did a master's with specialization in clinical.
Okay.
And then I got back, I started working in NGOs. I
Mhm.
was working part time in NGOs, and then recently I joined the Ministry of Education.
Wow, that's really
So I've
nice.
been working with kids and sometimes adults as well, kids with special needs, and also kids from the mainstream. That's what I do.
Wow, thank you so much. And can you tell me more about what you like in your job? So, what do you like about being a clinical psychologist?
What I like about it, um, I think the favorite part of the job is that I get to work with kids. I love kids. So I get to be around them. I get to take in their perspectives on different things.
Yeah.
It also helps me to keep the inner child in me alive. So I really love that part. And I also love the fact that it allows me to contribute meaningfully to other people's lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's.
Um, I think that is something which is very aligned with my values.
Mhm.
So I like that.
Wow, thank you. And during the period you worked, have you seen any impacts of COVID to kids related to psychology or not really?
Um, yes, there have been impacts.
Mhm.
Like when I was working NGOs with kids with special needs, there have been much regression. That is, things which they had already acquired, skills which they had already acquired were kind of lost. We had to work on them again with them. There has been a lot of difficulties to regulate their emotions. Many difficulties. There's an addiction to screens, mobile phones, tablets. So all of these things we had to deal with.
Yeah.
And many autistic kids with autism, who really need a routine, a very set routine. Most of them need a set routine to be able to function properly, without which they get very irritable, they're very agitated. We have several behavioral issues. So those kids had many difficulties to reintegrate, to resume school, because there has been a drastic change in their routine.
Yeah.
So these were some of the difficulties we had.
Wow.
Oh, wow. And finally, what is your advice to kids?
What is my advice to kids? I think so. This is my advice to teenagers, especially teenagers. It's very important to know yourself. Self-awareness, it's a journey, but the earlier you begin, the better it is. Because when you know yourself, it is better. It helps you to make choices, life choices in general, be it choices in your career, choices, the choice of subject you want to study, your career, the career you want to pursue, the job you want to have, where do you want to work, what type of job you want to have, and then even personal choices, whatever it is, it will help you to make those choices.
Wow.
And it's also important to maybe choose things, whatever choice that you make, when it's aligned with your personality, with your values, it will lead to a more fulfilling life, I believe.
Wow.
So when I'm speaking of values, this is one thing I want to clarify. When I'm speaking of values, it's not only values that we usually assume they are, like humility, like sincerity, whatever. Those are values which are good to have, of course, but it's important to know what are your personal values. What do you value in life? And your values may change over time. When you're a teenager, maybe what you value more is independence. You want independence. You'll value your time with your friends. You'll place a great value on technology, on those stuff. But when you grow up, those values may change. But whatever you value in life will help you to make choices in life.
Wow.
So
Thank you so much. It was really nice talking to you today and hearing more about what you do and your advice for kids. Thank you so much, Vivian.
Yeah, you're a very interesting person.
Thank you. You're welcome. And so I wish you the best. Keep going with this great initiative of yours. So hope to hear from you soon.
Will do. I'll keep in contact with you and I'll send you the link when we post it.
Okay, sure. Thanks.
Have a
Bye.
wonderful day. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.